As one of the leaders of Revelation TV, I sought God for a way that we could help those living in poverty and at the same time bring them the good news of Jesus Christ. For me, it needed to be something tangible, something I could get personally involved in. Compassion, a Christian charity, was the answer to my prayer. Having set up projects in some of the poorest nations of the world, they have now found us a new project in Rwanda that needs help. Becca, the Compassion team leader, will guide us on this journey. I know very little about Rwanda, but I do know that nearly 1 million people were killed during the genocide. What must life be like in the wake of such devastation? And what additional challenges do those living in poverty now face? So we're just approaching the Kigali Memorial Centre, and this is actually a museum set up for the people to be able to remember and reflect on the horrendous genocide of 1994. For me, it's an opportunity to learn more about it, to really see what these people went through, how their lives were affected, and therefore give me more understanding about how they're now rebuilding their future, their hope, and their lives.
Like, these are some of the identity cards that got brought in by the colonial powers, and before really the colonialists came in, Eugene was explaining that nobody really identified. They knew there were Tutsis, they knew there were Hutus, but really everyone just felt...
They just lived side by side.
They just lived side by side, and you had Tutsi kings, but he'd have advisors who were Hutu, and it was all fine. And then the colonial powers, the ones who wound it up, and then brought in these identity cards where they had to, you know, cross out the ones that they weren't, so they knew absolutely who they were.
Well, we're here in the graveyard. 250,000 people have been buried here, victims of the genocide. And over just behind me is the wall of names, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. Before I came into this genocide museum, I knew that I wanted to learn more about the genocide. I just had some bare facts in my head. But the thing I didn't expect to experience was just the raw emotion of seeing the images, seeing what happened, seeing the expressions on the victims' faces. The other thing I hadn't realised was that the Hutus and the Tutsis, there was a lot of intermarriage, and husbands were forced to hack to death their own wives and children. Can you even imagine it? I'm going to be interviewing a young man who not only was sponsored by Compassion, but is also a genocide survivor, and he really has done amazing things with his life.
1994, when genocide started, my family went to find a refuge in our Catholic Church, thinking that those genocide perpetrators will fear to kill people from God's house. But surprisingly, those genociders came in that Catholic Church and killed almost 12,000 in that church. One of our neighbors brought fuel and surrounded our home and burnt it completely. And my dad, his former friends, his workmates are the ones who killed my family and even himself. In our neighborhood, you found a lot of dead bodies. And I remember just behind our home, there's a big line of dead bodies that was laying there. And by that time, it's when Compassion opened a project just nearby. And I was registered. I was 6.5. And I'm so thankful for Compassion because that time we had no food to eat. We had no shelter. But Compassion gave us food to eat, provide a shelter, and even caring words. One of the things that I was struggling with is that spirit of loneliness. I used to go alone in a bush and cry, just remembering from my parents. One of the things that I can't forget is my former sponsor. He was from UK. His name is David Woodward. And always he used to send me letters saying, "Son, I know you are struggling, but I'm here for you. I'm praying for you. You're my son." And I felt so much loved when I was in grade 9. At that time, I met Jesus Christ. And my former project, helped me to grow spiritually. They nurtured me, and they made sure that I'm growing well spiritually. And from the time that I received Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior, He teared out all my tears. And I was no longer alone. I was hopeless, but Jesus gave me hope.
I didn't expect Rwanda to be so beautiful, so green, so lush. Everywhere I look, there are incredible views of mountains and valleys. Rwanda is called the country of 1,000 hills for good reason. It is truly breathtaking. We are now on our way to Bushyeni, a small village not far from Kigali. It is here that Compassion have started the project RW283, the project we will be sponsoring. This is where it becomes more real for me. It feels like a huge responsibility that we are undertaking. "217 young children stood before me, each one so precious. I was overwhelmed by the welcome I received. The joy and excitement of these children immediately dispelled my anxieties and fears. I instinctively realised this was just where God wanted me to be."
How are you? Okay, clap 1. Clap 2. Clap 3.
Ready? A, B, C, D, E, F. Becca, I really feel as if I've seen so much since I've been here in the last couple of days. And there's so many things that have impressed me. The fact that they can actually manage to contain 217 children in 3 or 4 tiny rooms. They fed them all porridge, but not one child said, I don't like it, I don't want it. But some of the children were actually tipping the last of their porridge into and sharing it out with their friends.
I think everywhere I've been, I've always been really amazed at how well behaved the children are actually, but also just the quality of the people who work with them. And so many of them are volunteers and some of them are paid, but they just love the children and they've got all this energy. They can build them, get them really excited, and they know how to get them just calm and ready to listen again. They're brilliant with them. I think children all over the world have just got this ability to play and thrive, and given the opportunity just to have so much fun. And when you watch them, it's so hard then to, when you go home and see where home is and what home's like, and that mum and dad are struggling so hard to even feed them. These kids, they have nothing, and yet still they know how to just find joy in the smallest of little things. They're just very grateful for everything, and I think that's beautiful.
Well, I've just been so impressed with the project manager here, because so many of the children, 217 children, but he knows them by name.
Yeah.
He knows their family background.
inzozi zanjye ni ukugira abana bubakitse mu buryo bw'umwuka no mu buryo bw'umubiri. Twabonye ko umuntu muzima agomba kuba akuze mu buryo bw'umwuka, bw'imitekerereze, mu kubana n'abandi kandi agakura neza ku mubiri. Twizera rero yuko uyu mushinga uzadufasha hamwe n'Imana kugira ngo aba bana bacu bazakure mu buryo bwo mu mutwe, mu mutima, mu by'umwuka no mu buryo bw'umubiri, bagakura neza kandi bakagira imibanire n'abandi iteye imbere.
I've seen what the church is meant to do in its community. I've seen what it looks like to really love your neighbour, because that's what's happening. And that's why these volunteers, they come just out of the sheer love for their neighbour. We were talking to some of the ladies who volunteered to cook lunch. They're doing it because their neighbours' kids are sponsored and they want to be able to serve them.
These are really good-sized portions that we've got here, but I guess this is probably the children's only meal of the day. I can't imagine that they would have another meal when they get home, from what I've heard about the way these children are living, but it smells very, very nice, and a lot of thought has been put in to the nutritional value of it, so I'm excited to see their faces. Well, I'm helping serving food to these 3- and 4-year-olds, and I can't believe how well behaved they are. They're not screeching, they're not snatching, they're not saying, I don't like this, I don't like the carrots on my plate. They're so well behaved, just sitting in benches with big plates of food and really enjoying it. I think we really do have a lot to learn from where I come from. This is the last class. Do you know they've been waiting so patiently for their food, haven't had a peep out of them.
I think as a teacher, there's this part of me that loves to see every child reach their full potential, to not let poverty or abuse or children at school or anything stop that from happening. And I think that when I look at compassion, it's exactly what it does. It finds every child and says, we know that God gave you hopes for a future, and he's got plans for your future, and we want to make sure that we can see those realised. Day in, day out, they're working to remove those obstacles away and make sure that poverty doesn't rob these kids of their future.
All of you.
So, Becca, what does it actually mean for a child to be sponsored by someone?
Well, the world is the starting point on that, but on a very practical level, what it means is so that child shouldn't go to bed hungry anymore. That child should be able to go to school all the way through until they finish their education. It means that that child will have any medical assistance that they need, but above and beyond those really physical, obvious things, it means that they get to come here to Project every week, and here at Project they'll get taught all those extra things that are so important, social skills, vocational skills as they get older. They get taught how to run a business. They'll get taught how to treat each other kindly, how to have good relationships. They'll get taught how to serve in their community. Perhaps most importantly of all, they get taught about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And so running through all of that is this discipleship thing that goes through. And what makes the way that Compassion does sponsorship pretty unique, is this knowledge that there's somebody on the other side of the world that has chosen to know you, who's chosen to say, you're my neighbour, I know your name, I'm going to support you, I'm going to encourage you through my letters, to be able to, give that child that hope that actually maybe if this person believes in me, maybe this is true. We all have hopes and dreams for our children, and the children that we meet here, their mums and dads have hopes and dreams for them, and they're often very similar to ours. And so to be able to help those parents is just, that's, I always say I think it must be the mum who smiles the greatest when she hears that her child's got sponsored.
Here comes a little one. Hello.
Hello.
You want to come here?
This is John. John
hello.
Damascene, and I know his mum and dad are really struggling.
As Project Day comes to an end, I reflect on some of the things I have seen today. The hundreds of precious children, the incredible staff who work tirelessly with them, all combined to create an experience I will never forget. Of course, my final thoughts are of little Jean Damascene, who so patiently sat on my lap. I'm looking forward to tomorrow when I actually get to meet his whole family.
Ndabyuka saa 11 nkafata ijerekani nkajya kuvoma mazi mu by'ukuri kuyazana nepfiriya ni nk'isaha n'igice uburyo turi bubeho ubwo gushaka amafaranga nk'ikiraka cyo guhinga ubutaka iyo mbyutse nk'iyo saa 11 ndaza ari ubuyede aho bubakisha amazu nkakubura amara gukubura nkatekera umwana igikoma cyamara gushya nkakarabya umwana ngatoragura inkwi saa 5 ubwo nkaba ndazamutse kenshi nkunda kwirira ibishyimbo ubunyobwa ibijumba n'icyo gitoki nkibonye n'ibyo birayo mbibonye nabyo ndabirya ibyo nkunda kwirira umuceri n'agahunga. Nukuri ubuzima buragoye kubera ko urabona nk'aba bana bakeneye kurerwa neza bakiga bagatera imbere nk'abandi bakazakorera baraburara kubwirirwa byo cyetse nk'iyi mvura yaguye ikaramukira ku muryango ariko itaguye mbasha kuba nakora karaka hanyuma bakarya. Nukuri ikintu nifuza kandi maze kubona ku itorero ryatubanjirije kutwereka inzira tugomba gucamo hanyuma kandi nkaba mbona ejo hazaza kubera itorero turimo tugenda tutera imbere kubera urabibona nawe itorero aho rituvanye turimo turagenda tuzamuka mu buzima bwa buri munsi uko bukeye ndabona ritumereye neza.
The short time I spent with Jean Damascene's family has really shown me how difficult life can be when you have so little. They literally live day to day, never knowing if they'll have enough food for them and their children. And yet they still trust in God, and the church here have brought such hope to their lives. There is a real depth to the people of Rwanda, a heart that beats with the rhythm of Africa, rich in culture and beauty. It was the church and the pastor's heart for the local community that led to the birth of this new project.
Tumaze kureba gutangira itorero turebye abana bari hano ibibazo bihari compassion twajyaga twumva imikorere yayo hanyuma dutera intambwe muri 2013 dusaba imikoranire hanyuma batwemera muri badusaba ko hari ibyo twuzuza tugerageza kubyuzuza kubaka amashuri urusengero misarane amabiro hanyuma tugizaho tubigeza batwemerera muri 2016 mu kwezi kwa mbere. Duhereye ku byo Imana imaze kutugezaho biratwereka ko ejo hazaza ari heza. Inzozi dufite ni ukubona aba bana turera aka gace itorero ririmo iterambere rigenda rizamuka mu buryo bw'umwuka no mu buryo bw'umubiri.
Before we go home, we have one last visit to make. Hello. Ooh. There you go. Oh, I think she's a bit scared of it. Oh, so sweet. No pretty dress. It's okay. Oh, very good. I've come here today just to tell you that I would really like to be the sponsor of your beautiful little boy.
Oh,
very good.
ni ukuri ikibazo uragize neza, urakoze, Imana izagumye guha umugisha, tubaye tugushimiye ubwitange bwawe ukomeje kutugirira.
Ubu ndimo ndabishimira Imana n'ibindi bizaza.
Thank you. I want so much now to show others what I have seen, to share about these extraordinary people that have come through such suffering in a way that few people would be able to achieve. The welcome I received was unlike anything I had ever experienced. The overwhelming emotion I felt when I met the children for the first time, it took me by surprise. My prayer is that this mission of ours will succeed, that someone will give these children a real chance at life, that each of them will find a sponsor who will say, I know you are struggling, but I am here for you.